also for joining this accelerator, and there's a detailed section about this in Silver Oak on tomorrow.
You have a lot of projects. How do I reach to what is your name?
We can make this a useful conversation and a conversation that we all can participate in, so I will not take much time. I just wanted to set some context before my colleague sets up more context. Just at the opening session, for any of you who was there, Mr. Amitabh Kant also very clearly spoke about, that his idea of cities, and it's not just him, it's so many of us, are walkable, sort of people-friendly. So the whole pyramid that most of us seek, right, is prioritize walk, cycle, public transport, and eventually, just as a last resort, the car. The session is named Scaling Up Safer Streets. We're in 2023. I think a big question upon us, and fair few of us will agree that back in 2006, the first time these words, at least as far as I remember, was spoken of, having to focus on moving people instead of having to move cars. We're talking 2006. Since then, we've mastered the language. We're speaking all the right things. The question is it translating into the right things? Is it as easy to translate by merely just drawing lines, which is, I would say, a civil engineering exercise, or does it need more? Does it need more thinking? Does it need more nuance, more sort of complexities to be addressed? But I think this is a decade sort of that is very crucial. The one thing that our last decade told us, or one of our learnings, was that pilots weren't really scaling as much. Rahagiri happened and scaled. It happened sort of how much transformation, or many of the other sort of us working on those pilots. Which means that in this decade, we probably need a sort of framework that doesn't only go from pilot to scale in a future that, we don't know when it will come. How do we rethink this? How do we make transformational change on our city streets, which, when you see, it's the easiest to do, but it's the hardest to achieve. So hopefully this is sort of, there's a lot of conversation around this. A lot of us are always engaged. We're just hoping that this conversation adds to that discourse. With that, I will call upon Akanksha to make a quick presentation on some of the context.
A lot of us have already seen this, but just treat this as a sort of refresher for today. So a closer look will suggest that a high percentage of people in our metro cities are either traveling by foot or are cycling. And not just metro cities, even if you look at the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, a lot of people there are also cycling and walking. So clearly evidence is suggesting that a high percentage have almost doubled in number. And this demand in the increase in number of vehicles, how have we addressed this in our cities, is one by either building high capacity infra, which is freeways, expressways and flyovers, or we have looked at mass transit solutions like the metro rail or the bus system. However, what is missed in all of this is the details, and this is what missing details looks like on street. Here is an example from Bangalore, but I'm sure anyone can relate this to any other city where you are also from. A herd of people can be seen who are trying to cross the road. So pedestrians each day have to risk their lives to just be on the streets. And this is just an example of how details are missed. There is no pedestrian crossing. There is no safe space for people to wait and cross while the signal goes to the other cycle. Again, we've provided crossings, but which are leading to walled refuge islands, And just so consider the plight of the people who are not fully able or who have some physical disabilities. We've provided footpaths, but to what? They are not, sometimes not continuous. Even if they are provided, the maintenance is a big question with the footpaths all the time. So somewhere we'll see very high curbs, which are obstructed by either some trees, utilities. These are just common sight, a few pictures from all cities, but I'm sure very, very common in every other city and every other street in India. What does all of this mean? What does all of this indicate? The quality of pedestrian infrastructure that is being present on our streets. That we have a very poor quality of urban life where people each day just to be on the streets are risking their lives. There is a new Climate Economy India report from 2018, which a few key findings from that. And one of the findings, it suggests that cities where the quality of life deteriorated, there the economic growth is also slowed down. And just this is a World Bank study which says that road crashes are estimated to cost the Indian economy 3 to 5% GDP a year. Hence, we must understand, we already know this, but I think we need to keep repeating to ourselves and keep making others also aware that streets are not just an engendering problem. It's not just about providing a carriageway where the thoroughfare motor vehicle traffic can move, or we provide a footpath where pedestrians can move. It has many users and many users. So streets cannot be just looked as an engineering problem or a solution. They cannot be just designed as conduits for traffic, rather as quintessential public spaces, where walking, cycling and public transport is given a fair share of road space, and where walking is enjoyable, cycling is convenient, it is safe for women, children and elderly, the streets are accessible to all, and people can spend quality time. So it's not like, after saying all of this, that nothing has been done in our cities. Several efforts have been taken at the national level, at the state level and the city level. And some of our Indian cities have seen very good street transformations also. JM Road in Pune, Tendershore in Bangalore, or CG Road in Ahmedabad, AGLR Mumbai. We've also, in Delhi itself, we've looked at Chandni Chowk getting pedestrianized. We've looked at the transformation of Delhi Gate intersection, which has now been transformed to make it safer for all users, including vehicles and pedestrians. We've seen cycle tracks coming up in Bangalore. And not just on-ground transformations, right? We've also made efforts to mobilize the whole community to scale up these transformations to a city level, to a state level, to a national level. We've had competitions and challenges like the Streets for People, the Nurturing Neighborhoods, the India Cycles for Change, the Mumbai Street Lab. We've also looked at the possibility of exploring network plans at neighborhood level, at city level. We've looked at intervening through policies and guidelines to really build the capacity of the officials also to help them scale these transformations at city level. But after all of this also, what is translated into ground, that is a long way to go in our Indian cities. What is implemented on ground, it's still a very small fraction, a very small portion. So the question really is it even possible to scale this, to scale such street transformation across the nation, across the cities? And how do we really move beyond pilots? So I'll end my presentation with this question, that from pilot to scale, what is the way ahead for us? Thank you. I'll now take a moment today to celebrate the Ragiri movement. It is 2023 and we are celebrating 10 years of the Ragiri movement, which almost started a revolution for building safer streets in our cities. Today we have the privilege of hearing from Mrs. Sarika Pandavat. She is the director at Nagaro and founding trustee of the Ragiri Foundation. She will enlighten us on the 10-year journey today.
But I must say that, if you are not fixing our streets, we will not able to fix anything related to climate change. That's for sure. Because we are talking about mobility for climate change, we are talking about urban flooding for climate change, we are talking about plantation for climate change. And the most important space that we have to address these three things is the streets, the way we are designing and developing. So, moving forward, here I'm a national movement. And after Rahagiri, we have seen many cities by themselves, started doing similar kind of, events, or I must say, I will not say it, event campaign, to talk about streets, to reclaim the streets. It's not just Rahagiri, but multiple things. So started in Gurgaon in 2013, and I still remember, and I get goosebumps for first Rahagiri. Me and one of my co-founder, Prabhat, we were coming from Gurgaon to CP for a meeting to discuss about Rahagiri. And we were in metro, and we get down at Rajiv Chowk metro station, and we said, if people like this at Rajiv Chowk, that you have seen Rajiv Chowk metro station, right? So if we can get so many people in our street walking, cycling, then we will say that, oh, Rahagiri Day is success. And we went back and we discussed this, and many people said, if we get to 2,000 people, then also we will celebrate that we got 2,000 people of Gurgaon on road to walk and cycle to reclaim the street. And believe me, we got more than 10,000 people first Sunday of Rahagiri Day, when we started in one of the CBD of Gurgaon, which is almost city center of Gurgaon near Galleria. And we were like, wow, because this was the first test. We even didn't know how it will go, who will be the partner, who all will be coming, what all we were doing. We were clueless when we started it. But it was a great achievement. But, okay, that's Gurgaon. And we were doing in and around Gurgaon, but it scaled up and became national campaign when it started in CP. When we reclaimed the street of CP, and when it became a national news, then we received so many requests from multiple cities to organize Rahagiri Day. So this is how, everybody plays a role. When we talk about positivity, when we talk about impact, when we talk about changes. So everybody plays so crucial role. I always say Rahagiri Day is not that 5 of us started, but it is because of the people, because of media, because of government become a national level campaign. So almost 80 cities now organize Rahagiri Day, 18 states, and more than 3,000 the event Sunday Car-Free Days has been organized already, and billions of people have already attended Rahagiri Day. These are few glimpses from the first Rahagiri Day. Rahagiri Day stopped in between for a year, but again people demanded, they demanded that they want Rahagiri Day back. For many people, it was a socializing event. For many people, we always heard, oh, what is happening, dance, this, that. But it become, in last presentation, we said street is not just engineering, right? It is for socializing. It is for, all the road users. It is for street vendors. This is how you create street. It is not just engineering. So we try to showcase that. Of course, the exercise, the Zumba, the dance, everything is part of it to attract audience, and we used to get that captive audience to share our knowledge, why we need this kind of street, why you are so happy in such street, and why you scream every Monday morning that there is a traffic jam and you go to the social media and tweet about it, and why you are not so angry at Rahagiri Day. So these are the things that we try to get audience for. And even for police, but when they used to get, organize this road safety campaigns or some awareness campaign like that, they hardly used to get 50, 100 captive people, where they can actually showcase their work or try to create awareness about road safety. But Rahagiri Day given them this platform to actually talk about road safety. So multiple things, multiple challenges, and then we keep continuing Rahagiri Day in multiple cities, and in Gurgaon especially we keep on doing it. So why? What was the mission of when we started Rahagiri Day? Basically, again talking about streets for all. So when we started, when we went to the government and said that we want to cordon off this stretch of road and all that. Oh, who walks and cycles in Gurgaon? If you give them opportunity, everybody will take their car to their bedroom. This was the answer. And we said, give us one chance. And we need to demonstrate this, that people in Gurgaon also like to walk, like to cycle. if you given them the opportunity, given them the safe infrastructure. That was one of our mission. Then behavioral change, as I said that, for everyone, for government departments, for society, civic society group, for education institutions, for citizens. We got a chance to actually walk the talk through this. So changing the behavior, we not greatly, but we can see the change that people stop before zebra crossing sometimes. Who were actually using that road during Rahagiri Day. Advocating capacity building through this. Of course, designing and execution will become the next stage. Okay, we did so many Rahagiri, what next? So let's work on making 24/7 Rahagiri streets and then engaging bottom up from civic society group to the multiple agency. Walk or cycle to school, what about them? Because see, pedestrians, cyclists don't create traffic jams, so they are invisible road users. So we need to understand that 48% for women, either for socializing or dropping their kids to school or for livelihood, they walk. So it's important to address their things also. So that's why vibrant street is important, where women and children feel safe. Accessible mobility, again, 3% Indians drive car to work. And what we saw in the presentation, that the whole focus is on building more roads.
All is not that bleak. I think a lot of cities are stepping up now. So I would like to just start first with Shashanka ma'am. My first question is, you see in the presentation from Akansha, there are pilots, a lot of pilots have been done, Delhi has also done it. What next and how do we go about it at a much larger scale in terms of the next decade that we see?
Thank you. Good morning everyone. I'd just like to introduce myself. I'm Shashanka. I'm with the Public Works Department. So I have jotted down something, so I will somehow try to fit this into my reply, no matter what he's going to ask. So quickly, I thought I'll just set the perspective because I'm the first speaker for this panel. Let's quickly differentiate between streets and roads, and let's not confuse between the both. I'm sure my definition is also not right, but just let's start to assume a few things. Where do we have roads and where do we have streets? What all do we need on streets and what all do we need on roads? And we must also accept that that both the requirements will be different. So roads are where you are connecting, basically streets are where you're connecting residences mostly, because there will be people walking in and out of those places, and they will need what we are calling the complete streets. So that we all agree. Roads, I'd like to just maybe contrary to the view of this room, will be a little different, where we will say that they will move from point to point in terms of work, in terms of need or necessity, but they will not necessarily be using those spaces for, let's say, sitting around or just jollily walking around or drawing or painting on the roads. Okay, so these two things I just wanted to set the perspective with. And we've done a few pilots. I had the privilege of working with WRI before also. Pilots, as long as they are with design, with the orientation of design. So, what do we need for like complete streets or complete roads? One, the will that we need to make them complete. Because I think for a long time, for the last few years, we did not even come to that conclusion that we need roads for just more than vehicles. So that we are sort of moved ahead. Next is design. So in pilots, what we see is a lot of energy, lot of time goes into designing these streets. Like the one that was being showed, where the pedestrian is hitting a roadblock, or there are no frequent pedestrian paths, things like that, which could be used in design. And this design, only when it is incorporated at the planning level. And fortunately or unfortunately, streets and roads are done by the government, they're not done privately. So each time you make a road or a street and then you want to convert it, change it later on, it will cost a lot of money, finances, which is not easily sought from the government. So basically the design practices, whatever we've learned, for which all of you would have spent a lot of time, should be incorporated at the level of initialization of the project. failing which it gets very difficult for implementation. Then third and fourth is obviously implementation and enforcement. Now, these pilots start off very well because it is completely focused on design. Design is something which is in our hands, so we will cordon off the area and we will say that here there will be a pedestrian seat, there will be a place to sit, there will be a place to walk, vehicles will not be parked here, the vehicles will be moving in this direction, all that. We figure that in design. But then when it comes to maintenance, agencies like yourself will also sort of move out and then we again come back to where we were before this had started. So that again goes in a vicious cycle. So ideally, I think for pilots to be large scale, the best way is to have all these designs in the implementation before we start the implementation, and also take a small division between, is it only purely aesthetic, like just do we want to beautify our streets, or do we want to make them functional? Like if there's no place to walk, then it's not at all functional. So if these things are going to become a part of our design, which we are also trying with WRI and other agencies, where we have told our engineers also to sit with them, even transport department was with us, where we will sit before we do these crossroads or these new roads and use those designs, make it like a compulsory design feature in our roads henceforth, and so that pilots.
Good morning, everyone. So first, let me introduce myself. I am Shahzad Alam, and currently I am looking road safety from Transport Department. And regarding this challenge of interdepartmental coordination, what I see is that each department is regulated by its own act. Suppose there is a Motor Vehicle Act which has its enabling provision related to road safety, and that is the mandate of suppose Transport Department. But same manner, the development of streets and means developing infrastructure is looked after by the MCD, and MCD is regulated by its own act, MCD Act. And in the same manner, each department is regulated and work under the provision and regulations of their act. Where I see the biggest silos, the reason because the silos get created is because this legislative framework does not envisage the coordination. What happening is that someone has to intervene. But when the Supreme Court is also intervening, so we all know means the District Road Safety Committee is not as effective as it should be. And that is because the different department which sit in the District Road Safety Committee, that is the like MCD, PWD, Education, Transport, headed by the District Magistrate concerned, each department is within their own domain of act on the basis of which they have to work. Many a times it will depend on the officer that how much hard and the soft boundary he wants to create around himself, how much coordination he will allow, and for that what we can do. So first, if we want to have a very effective this kind of coordination and interdepartmental silos, barrier breaking of barrier, it has to be enabled through the legislative framework. But that is slightly far-fetched. So what we can do at the level of officers is that continuous meetings, coordination, and this kind of dialogues, which will create an environment to work together and then to achieve a common goal, given the fact that yes, we are all working within our own domain. So this is what I believe is the main reason of the silos in the department, and the same comes with when it comes to road safety, because road safety has been only talked in this Motor Vehicle Act. No other act like MCD Act there is no reference of road safety, and the same goes with the other acts also.
Seem to be on the right direction towards working in terms of saving lives. I would like to go to my next panelist, Singh sir. I think we are here, I think one is of course we are here to celebrate 10 years of open streets. And in a way Gurgaon and the state of Haryana have shown the way when it comes to celebrating Ragiri Day. As Sarika's map clearly showed the kind of density of Ragiri Days that were happening in Haryana versus the rest of the country or other states. It was very obvious that Haryana has embraced this, not only just as a pilot project, but seems to have institutionalized it. So what has been the success, especially in GMDA? How is that GMDA seems to be on board and other cities in Haryana have taken this up and constantly do it on a regular basis?
Good morning to everyone. I am Colonel R.D. Singh. I am looking after Mobility Division of GMDA, Gurgaon Metropolitan Development Authority. Gurgaon is a unique city. 3 decades back, population was only 2.4 lakh. Now it is about 25 lakh and 30 square kilometer in 1992. Now it is 600 square kilometer. So it has grown exponentially, and we also call it a millennium city. It has got its own problem, unique culture, and maintaining mobility of this type of city is really a problem. However, like we have heard that Sarika ma'am, that Rahigiri started in Gurgaon only 2014, and they have been able to bring in the minds of the people, the roads are for people, not for car only. This, until unless this psyche of the people changes, we will not be able to bring about the changes at ground. Though planning, we can plan anything, but it has to be implemented with the community participation. And we have got for Gurgaon comprehensive mobility management plan designed by School of Planning, Delhi. And like we have planned that by 2031, we will be able to construct 800 km of footpaths. Similarly, we have got our planning for cycle tracks, and this year 34 km of footpath is being constructed, and we have planned for 64 km more for this year only. So we plan we should be able to achieve our target by 2031, 800 km of cycle track in the city. That is our plan, and of course there are bottlenecks, there are problems, and there is the psyche of the people also. And because you see Delhi Gurgaon expressway, it is called expressway, but once you drive, you may find 3-wheeler Chota Hathi also, you find 4-wheeler some 407 also going along you. So design speed is 120 km. Similarly within city, that police will come, they will clear the pedestrian footpaths, and after some times, after 2 hours, the same vendors will sit back. So there are socio-economic problems also. So really, but still we are doing our best, and with the help of community participation, the changes will be happening now.
Because the silent majority doesn't speak up, and that's why it's important. I think the governments also step up and help the silent majority be heard and make sure that the agenda is pushed towards a more sustainable goal. So I think Ragiri definitely is a big push for that. Another thing I guess we are also celebrating here today, also not many people know, but it's also been almost 10 years of Tender Sure guidelines. It has been a game changer for Bangalore. I'm personally a big fan of Tender Sure guidelines and the work that has been carried on in Bangalore with this. Ma'am, you have done quite a bit on streets, junctions, and I'm quite sure you would have also seen and worked on the Tender Sure projects itself. The promise for Tender Sure was that it will change the way we look at our streets. There won't be any more requirement of digging of streets for next 30 years. It's been almost close to now 2015 was the first street was inaugurated.
Good morning everyone. I am Hemlata. I am superintendent engineer in BBMP. I mainly look after the city infrastructures. As rightly said, sir, we are mainly focusing on the proper carriageway as well as focusing on all the kinds of people. So Tender Shore Road is the one of the first initiative of the country to make the roads more safer for not only for the vehicles but also for the pedestrian. So the big challenge was the moving of the utilities. So in the Tender Shore roads, we have made the uniform carriageway for the vehicles as well as we have given the proper space for the pedestrian as well as the LMTs. So the biggest challenge is like we all know that shifting of the utilities. Wherever we maintain the road, it comes here. Wherever we build a road, we develop a road. The maintenance is the issue because as we are talking about the coordination of the other agencies. So we are all giving services to the people, but a lot of issues with their own legislative whatever it is. So we do the roads, and some other agency comes and dug up the road for the laying of the water lines or sewages. So in order to avoid this, we come up with the Tender Shore roads, and now it is almost 6-7 years it's been developed. So it has given another state for the entire city, I can say. We have started this from few roads. Now we are planning to take it up even more roads in the future. We have shifted the utilities underground, and we have laid all the utilities newly. Even it is from the other departments like water, sewerage, or the OSC or the BSNL lines. We have made separate conduits and separate utilities to lay. So there is no digging of the road that's happening. And some of the challenges where these are not only it's a road with all the properties and the residential and the commercial properties which is there, and keeping the live line alive and to lay the new line was a challenge. And the process is not cakewalk. It's a little bit complicated because of the giving the access to the public as well as properties and keeping the live alive, the lines alive. So now it takes little time rather than the other formation of roads. Maybe the bituminous road or the asphalt roads can be made quickly. But for the Tender Shore roads, because we are shifting the entire utilities, bringing the entire utilities on the sides of the carriageway, and ensuring there is no pipes, and then we are keeping the cross ducts inside so that there is no taking of the roads in future. So once we are laid, see this is my 7 years, and we have not seen any digging of the roads, any digging in those roads. Maybe because all the lines except the KPTCL lines, the power lines, all the other lines have been newly laid. So there is no demand for any other agencies to come and dig it. So that is one aspect. And also maintenance, since the stormwater drains has been also been laid here, the surface runoff due to the climatic change what we experienced last year is full of rain. So the surface runoff was well taken into the stormwater drains, and even there was no silt up also. There was no silt in the pipes what they have laid. So there is no choking that has happened. Even the entire city, wherever because last year actually you would have seen there was a lot of flooding in Bangalore because of heavy rains. But in these Tender Shore roads, there was no flooding at all. That is the one things what we have observed. So moving forward, along with Tender Shore, we are doing the white topping roads to become pothole free. So this year we have earmarked around another 800 crores for 100 kilometers of roads to be laid. Initially, maybe we feel that cost is a little higher, but it's a maintenance free of it. So it will not only give the uniform carriageway for the vehicles, we have also made the footpath wider, so the pedestrians can easily walk away. So we have seen the network, like many of the people started walking on the streets. So there is a connectivity from each streets, and the people walks in these roads. So mainly we concentrate on the CBD area, so that it has been already grown. Like there is no further expansion of the city. So we start with CBD area so that there is no development that happens.
how do you see this pilot projects, getting into a much sort of an industrial scale, let's say, of development, and where are the challenges we can sort of foresee for now?
Thanks. So I think moving from pilots to scale up, I think it's becoming very comparatively easy for the cities like maybe Bangalore, Pune or Delhi. But if we take examples of mid-sized cities, like for example I'm working in Dehradun. So for them, I think they are still in very early stages of understanding what is complete streets, what are safe streets, etc. So for example, we recently did one street near the school area, so it's safe schools projects under the cities. And actually the first thing people noticed was now it is looking clean, okay, now it is looking beautiful. And when we were talking to the stakeholders, and then I again and again asked them like, what else? And then finally she said, yeah, now I can walk easily from one junction to my school. Then I said, yes, that's what we are doing. Actually, it's functionality, like she pointed out in the beginning. I think rather than beautification, functionality is the first thing we need to bring in. So I think this definition or this the formula from pilot to scale up will change from city to city, or maybe at least between the smaller cities and bigger cities. For big cities, I think now it's time to move maybe one step ahead and start thinking about making it statutory. Because our development plans are still talking about just like land uses and road widening. But they don't talk about NMT network, they don't talk about public transport network. So why can't we put them in the development plan itself, so that these legislative questions, or maybe it will be a great tool for the city also to implement wider footpaths, or if city is not doing it, people will be able to ask them, why are you not doing it if it's there in the DP. So like in Pune's bicycle plan, the first thing that came out of the discussion was it has to be in the development plan. But that process started long back in I think 2018, it's still not over. So it's still not statutory. And that is becoming a big challenge for us to push for making cycle tracks on certain streets, or making even cycle lanes, painted cycle lanes on certain streets. So I think for big cities, the answer will be from pilots to scale up. If now they have to think about making it statutory, they know all this language of moving streets are for people and not vehicles. All engineers know it. So now it's like one step next for them. And for maybe mid-sized cities, I think it's still basics, understanding the basics, not just for the engineers or not just for the government, but also making them understand easily for the people, for the stakeholders as well. So I think there it will be still a challenge. But for mid-sized cities, I should also point out that if we compare with them such large cities, they don't even have, road department is a very infrastructure oriented term. I would say they should have mobility department because there is no one to take care of mobility aspects. Half of the streets are with the state highways, national highways, some are with the PWD. When they have to do any street, they call PWD engineer and they don't know what to do. So I think for them,
one thing is quite obvious here is also the fact that if cities have to do it, they have to also have a robust, a strong system of consultants, because consultants are going to be necessary, urban designers, planners, engineers, highway engineers, you name it. There's a long list of professionals that can make a complete street. We have quite a few of consultants here in the group. We have quite a few people from think tanks, from NGOs. I just want to get some opinions from them too. So I'll just open the stage for the consultants here, for the think tanks. Couple of minutes, couple of people. Yes, sir.
Running a professional firm called NMP Design, which has recently completed, we were appointed to do 100 kilometers of streetscape for the Delhi government with the PWD, and we have completed 2 pilot projects, Majlis Park and Surajmal Vihar. So those were done in close coordination with WRI, and we are doing another about 100 kilometers in Gurgaon, where GMD is one of the stakeholders. Now, it took us, I'm also a professor of landscape architecture at SPA Delhi. So it took us a lot of hard work to put together a team which has landscape architects, urban designers, transport planners, everybody together and deliver a lot of these projects. So I have a few questions for Gurgaon especially. Gurgaon is dependent largely on CSR funds and the work like Sarika ma'am is doing to bring safer streets to people. So why is the richest municipality in India shying away from taking head-on the responsibility of transforming the streets? Why are you only doing 40 kilometers of cycle track in a year when you are building crores of square foot of FAR every year? Why is such a pretense for the pedestrian? I mean, it's time that our municipal bodies, take the responsibility and start spending funds on this rather than is the richest municipality.
Like Chandni Chowk is different and where we are sitting is different. If you start comparing कि Chandni Chowk में हमारा foot track क्यों नहीं बन रहा, cycle track क्यों नहीं बन रहा, it is very difficult. There are so many factors. The footpath, though legally that is our right of way. You can say this is our land, this is municipal land, but somebody sitting there since last 20 years, 30 years, it is not. So sometimes we plan that suppose this is a model road we will be constructing. So we are not able to get the encroachments clear, and you will be surprised. There will be stay, there will be court cases. As a citizen, I am also a citizen. We would like to do lot of things, but on ground it is very difficult. Designing a new street, new road, a new footpath is very easy.
So you just mentioned that Gurgaon went from 50 square kilometers to 600 square kilometers in a space of so many years. So that all that land was not encroached; it was free land.
New Gurgaon, there is no problem. All the new roads which are coming up, we have got right of way designed by School of Planning, and it has got cycle track, it has got foot track, it has got that drain, it has got that.
May I request Shashanka ma'am, Shehzad sir, Madhav to stay with us.
Talented designers and architects who have really put in a lot of hard work.
I would like to request Ms. Dhwani Trivedi and Mr. Shashank Verma to please come on stage. I would request Shehzad sir to please come on stage. I would request Ms. Chandray and Ms. Simran to please on the stage. Ms. Chandray and Simran. Ms. Akriti and Ms. Paulami. Akriti and Paulami.
climate. We're talking at the intersection of, we need water experts, we need design consideration, we need engineering, we also need traffic engineering. I think that's very less talked in India when we're talking about how our corridors and junctions are designed. And of course, material science, because it also is important on what kind of materials are we using while doing our roads and streets. I think there was also very interesting learning that as climate crisis become more and more evident, which we have just been seeing, we need to address the challenge of not just safety and accessibility when we're talking about street, but also heat stress and water stress. I think all three together is what we need to look at climate resilient streets, what I would say, and how do we really move towards that when we're designing for pedestrians, for cyclists, for all users. Also, it was very heartening to see with all the youngsters saying that there is hope. We also heard about a lot of pilots and community engagement. So it's not as bad as we all keep imagining that there is no, it's so dark, but the experiences from Gurgaon, from Bangalore, from all these cities reinforce that there are examples to learn from each other. There is community engagement is extremely, extremely important. And at the same time, how do we now come together to really move to a scale? Because audience for the wonderful inputs and suggestions, and for all the panelists for a wonderful discussion. So thank you all.
It is